How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to On The Ball and welcome back to another week of Premier League reviews as the follow-on from me and Sim going head-to-head in predicting Premier League outcomes. As you can see, I am in the lead, 53 points to 45 points, 5 points for a completely correct scoreline, 1 point for a correct result. And the star man, once you pick that man, you can't pick them again for the rest of the season. 5 points for a goal, 2 points for an assist. And let's get into the weekend's action, starting off at St James's Park, where they held Man City to a 1-1 draw. Sim went for 1-0 to Man City. I went for 2-1 to Man City. And on the back of that Arsenal defeat and how frustrated they were at the end of it, I really felt that they kind of needed a win against a Newcastle side who haven't been performing well this season. But I think they actually did perform pretty well in this game. And look, it finished 1-1, and it was probably a fair result at the end of it.
Yeah, no Isaac as well for Newcastle in this game. I thought they coped with him pretty well, putting Anthony Gordon in the forward line, and obviously he was the one who went through and earned the penalty to earn the equaliser. It looked like Man City were going to win the game fairly comfortably when Gavardiol put Man City 1-0 up with a brilliant finish, by the way, and he's becoming one of those centre-backs who's really comfortable in the opposition penalty box. He scored quite a few goals at the back end of last season.
Oh, such high quality goal, though, wasn't it?
Like cut inside and just curled it into the far corner on his right foot as well, like a seasoned striker. So Gavardiol really starting to get her goals at the moment. But really good player. But yeah, as you say, obviously a draw at St James's Park is never an absolute disaster. But when you're Man City, who have just lost Rodri, they drew last week at home to Arsenal. They really wanted to get back on track, and this wasn't really the way to do it. Haaland not on the score sheet as well, which first time this season I think that's happened. So not the best game for Man City, but Newcastle did kind of what they did last season, just sat back, waited for counter-attacks and exploited the space that City left behind, and they did that pretty well. And I thought Joel Linton had a really good game as well.
Yeah, didn't Newcastle have like double the XG that Man City had on the day? Or a lot
of it was the penalty, but it was 1.57 to Newcastle, 0.9 to City, so Newcastle definitely led the way on the XG.
And after a really barnstorming start to the season for Man City, and Rodri didn't play in the majority of those games, they've now drawn 3 games in a row. Albeit, they are very hard games, but you expect them to beat Inter Milan at home in the Champions League. They drew 0-0. The Arsenal game, playing with a man advantage for a whole half pretty much. You probably expected them to win that game as well. And now away at Newcastle, who, look, be fair to Newcastle, as much as maybe they haven't clicked into gear so much, they are getting consistent results throughout the season so far. Yeah, not the greatest few weeks for Man City, and I do kind of fear for them. I think they'll get over the line in the majority of the games, but when it comes to the crunch, really tough games, like the Newcastle's always, like against the Arsenals, I do see them struggling without Rodri.
He's their best player, and we saw last season how they did do that, but I think it's hard to judge it now. It'll be interesting because once they've had a few weeks to figure out how they're going to do it without Rodri, then I think we can judge them. I think right now, Pep is still trying to find that solution, so we'll see if he can do it.
Let's go to the Emirates as Arsenal and a last gasp victory against Leicester, 4-2 on the day. Sim went for 3-0, I went for 2-0. And look, let's be real, Arsenal pummeled them for the majority of this game. They went 2-0 up on the stroke of half-time, I think it was. And then all of a sudden, Leicester got themselves back in it. 2 goals in the early stages of the second half. And you're thinking, wow, are we in for a miraculous result here at the Emirates? But I think the pressure told by the end of it. I thought Ethan Nwaneri came on towards the end of the game, and I thought he looked really good. And I think Arsenal's pressure ultimately told, and Leicester ultimately cracked at the end, and they got 2 goals in stoppage time.
Yeah, I think Leicester will probably even surprise themselves that they got back in that game, because Arsenal were just all over them, creating chance after chance. Even, without the likes of Odegaard on the pitch, they were still able to really pen Leicester in. And they got their 2 goals. Martinelli, and I think it was it Trossard who got the other one. And it looked like they were going to win it a canter. But out of nowhere, free kick comes in, Justin's header deflects in off an Arsenal defender. All of a sudden they got 1 back, but still, I don't think anyone really believed Leicester were actually going to get back in the game despite scoring a goal and getting it back. But what a goal by James Justin, one of the goals of the weekend, you have to say. Cross comes in from the left-hand side. It floats to kind of the edge of the penalty area on the right-hand side, and he just... It was very reminiscent of that Pavard goal for France in the World Cup back in 2018. It just spins around David Raya in off the post, and an unbelievable goal from James Justin, and scored 2 at the Emirates on the day. It was incredible from him. But Arsenal, as much as obviously they got it back to 2-2, Leicester, they didn't let it affect them, and they just kept creating chance after chance. The keeper, I think, set a record for saves in the past.
He was unbelievable.
6 years. What was his name? Hermansen. He was just making save after save after save. And at that point, when it got to stoppage, I'm thinking maybe it is going to be Leicester's day with the amount of saves they made. But unfortunately, wasn't to be. There was an own goal, another goal from a corner for Arsenal, classic Arsenal, and they ended up getting the win, and then they got a second one to round it off right at the end. So Arsenal feel like they got the win they deserved. Leicester will just feel absolutely gutted that they just couldn't hang on for another couple of minutes.
Yeah, and they started the game with a Winks and Skippy double pivot. Skippy must have thought he was playing a North London derby with some of the challenges that he was putting in on the day.
Yeah, good on Skippy.
Do you think he deserved a sending off for that challenge? Because I think he did, studs up, quite high. It was a dangerous, reckless challenge, wasn't it?
I think maybe what they call it, a dark yellow. I think it was a forceful one. I think probably he gets away with the yellow card, in my opinion. Calafiori as well on a second yellow could have been sent off. So I think both teams maybe have their grievances from that point. But Skip definitely putting in some full-blooded challenges.
Let's go to Brentford against West Ham, which finished 1-1 on the day. Sim went for 2-2. I went for 2-1 to Brentford. So Sim gains a point in this one. Another weekend goes. Another goal within 60 seconds for Brentford, and particularly for Brian Mbeumo, which seemed like pretty much a carbon copy of the goal that he scored at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last week.
Will anyone take kick-off against Brentford at the first minute instead of... Does Brentford always win the coin toss? How are they winning this coin toss every week? It's incredible. That's probably even more unlikely than scoring in the first minute.
It's incredible. It's incredible what they do in the opening games. But again, what Brentford do is they take the lead early and they don't win the game, and they and that's exactly what happened again. Thomas Souček scoring just at the start of the second half, and the game finishes 1-1.
Yeah, but big story coming out of this one is Mohamed Kudus and Lopetegui apparently coming to blows at half-time. Lopetegui dragging him off at the break because he said that Kudus wasn't playing for the team and was playing too individually, and apparently Kudus had to be restrained from going at Lopetegui, which is coming from a lot of West Ham ITKs. So not all is well, does seem, at West Ham at the moment. Lopetegui hasn't had a good start to the season, a good start to his West Ham tenure. 1 win in his first 6 games. And they're not really playing good football, especially with the team they have now. Some of the signings they made in the summer, you really thought West Ham were going to kick on this summer, but Lopetegui definitely feel like he's under pressure, and another game goes begging for him where they don't get the win. Brentford, look, they'll take the point. It's not the best result, but it's not the worst result drawing to a team like West Ham. It keeps them, in mid-table. But they've now, obviously, they've lost 2 and drawn 1 of their last 3. So not in the best of form, but when you're Brentford, then you kind of expect to go through bits of form like that, don't you?
Yeah.
Even though they're a good team, obviously losing whistles.
They just score too early though in games,
don't
they?
Exactly. Maybe they should score in the second minute, not the first minute, and give themselves more of a chance. But yeah, I wonder where this whole West Ham thing leads, because it doesn't seem very... Because apparently Mohamed Kudus is really angry because he keeps playing on the left-hand side and he doesn't want to play there. And
where does he want to play? Through the middle?
Either through the middle or off the right, and he doesn't want to play off the left, which I can't.
He's not going to play on the right because that's where Jared Bowen plays, right? Through the middle, I can see where he's coming
number
from.
10.
Yeah, I mean, who's playing there at the moment? Paquetá?
Kind of. They're playing a kind of 4... Yeah, I guess Paquetá, yeah. But they can drop Paquetá back and, put him there. But then who plays on the left? Maybe Somerville. You got a player there. Somerville can put on the left. So, I mean, he's got options, but he keeps playing Kudus there. But it's not. I guess it's not great when you've got a player having been restrained from going at your manager.
Yeah, no, it's awful. It's an awful look, obviously. And when you've got a player of Mohamed Kudus' quality, you got to play him in the right positions to get the best out of him. And if playing him off the left is not getting the best out of him, I don't agree with the way Kudus is going on about it. And he shouldn't be standing up to his manager like that, particularly in public. But the manager should be playing in a position to get the best out of him, because the quality that he does have is just incredible. He's such a good football player. You saw that last year under David Moyes when he was given like that kind of free role. The way he can take it past a man, the quality that he has, he can provide assists, provide goals on a frequent occasion. So if he does end up falling out with Lopetegui and they have to sell him because of it, there's going to be a very lucky team to pick him up.
Well, they were saying that he needed to get results against Brentford and Ipswich. At the moment, Brentford was a draw, so not the best result. Got Ipswich at home. That's kind of a must-win at this point for Lopetegui.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if he gets sacked if they lose, but I mean, he's under serious pressure. And then Spurs comes away next after that. So
well, keep him in the job for the Spurs game is what I say. Let's go on to Stamford Bridge. Chelsea 4, Brighton 2. A game that always promised goals. We both went for 2-2 predictions. And yeah, I mean, Brentford go 1-0 up at Stamford Bridge very early doors. And look, it was the Cole Palmer show, wasn't it? 4 goals in the first half for Cole Palmer. It was a hat-trick within half an hour for him. It did finish 4-2 at half-time. And then you're thinking, wow, how many goals are going to be in this game? But then, you know how it goes sometimes. When there's so many goals in the first half, sometimes both teams just cancel each other out in the second. And I think that's what happened. But you got to give credit to Cole Palmer and you got to give credit to Enzo Maresca as well, who's really come into Chelsea and got a tune out of them straight away.
Yeah, Palmer is really doing some special stuff at the moment in this team. And obviously he got 4 goals. I mean, the free kick was sensational. Really nice penalty and linked up well with Jackson for the first one. And he's really playing amazing. He's really carried on. A lot of people question, was last season not a fluke, but, did he overperform last season? There was, I think, some legit questions, can he keep up that kind of form this season? He's showing last season was not a fluke. He's really he really is that good, and the question marks would be how are we going to fit him into this England side? Because when you've got a player racking up the numbers he just has to play by any means necessary. And I think Jadon Sancho's had a great start to life at Chelsea as well. You've got to give Chelsea credit because a lot of people question why are they signing Sancho on top of all the other talent they've just signed. Is that really necessary? But they've put him straight into the team, and he looks brilliant. He looks like he's got a new lease of life. What I would say is Brighton were definitely the kind of team Chelsea like to play against. They left all that space in behind, and Chelsea were just over time and time again playing it into that space. Jackson was running in behind, Palmer running in behind. They had all the forward players that you could ask for to exploit that space, and Brighton just didn't want to basically restrict that, and they didn't want to stop Chelsea from playing. So Chelsea did find it quite easy on the day, and as well, as much as Chelsea were impressive going forward, at the back they were quite shaky. You look at the first goal, Sanchez all over the place, that first goal, and Rutter heads it over him. Second goal, Sanchez again mistake, passes it straight to Baleba, who scores. So obviously a great day going forward, but still at the back, question marks about if they come up against a team who's going to stop them going forward, will they be able to stop making mistakes going at the back? But definitely their forward line is looking brilliant at the moment. And Maresca, with his possession-based football, has had a really good start to life. I mean, where are they sitting? They're sitting 4th at the moment. The only loss they had was the opening day against City. They've had 4 wins in their last 5 as well. So, and the football they're playing, with Palmer right at the heart of it, is really exciting. So if I'm a Chelsea fan, I would be very excited.
I'm looking at the options that they have.
That was Brighton's first loss, right?
Brighton's first loss, yeah. I'm looking at the options that Chelsea have in the forward line, and I don't know if any other Premier League team have as good depth and quality that they have. I think they've got the best in the Premier League. I really believe that. Yeah,
I mean, just in all positions, they seem to have someone who can come on, and it's and even when we haven't seen it yet, but when it's like not working, on the hour mark, they got all this talent to come on, and that's an exciting prospect, isn't it?
Yeah, for them anyway. Brighton, on the other hand, after a really confident and fast-paced start to the season, they're winless in 4 now, albeit 3 of them are draws, and one of them's at Chelsea away, the loss, and an impressive draw away at Arsenal. But draws against Ipswich and Nottingham Forest. Is there any cause for concern at Brighton at the moment?
I wouldn't say cause for concern because, they expect to be around mid-table. But obviously, given how fast they started, they probably thought, oh my God, Hurtzler's the second coming of Jesus or something. And maybe they have to tamper their expectations. But look, he's still brand new to the job. He's going to take some time.
Very young as well.
Exactly, 31 years old. He's only ever managed at Bundesliga 2 level. So it's a learning curve for everyone. And also they've got so much talent. It's similar to Chelsea, not in terms of quality, but in depth-wise, they've got unbelievable amount of talent in their forward line. They're also probably still figuring out who the best front line is. So No, I don't think anything to worry about. They're still scoring goals and stuff. But obviously, it's a bit disappointing considering they started the season. They probably thought, could we challenge for top 4? Could we do this kind of stuff? And maybe they got to just temper those kind of expectations.
Let's go to Goodison Park, as it was 2 winless teams coming up against each other in Everton and Crystal Palace. Everton take the cake this time, 3 points, 2-1 against Crystal Palace at Goodison. We both went for 1-1. And good for Sean Dyche, obviously, to get his first win of the season. But what is going on at Crystal Palace? They just can't buy any points at the moment. They are
18th, yeah.
Yeah, they're flattering to deceive. Ollie Glasner at the back end of last season, everyone was hailing him as like, what a great manager, what an impact he's made at this football club. And they've started the season. Nobody could have predicted how they've started this season.
Yeah, and really disappointed. No wins, struggling to score goals as well. And I think maybe the loss of Elise was bigger loss. And I mean, obviously they knew it was going to be a massive loss, but did they really believe that they were going to drop so much? They signed Nketiah, they signed Ismaila Sarr, they signed Kamada. They would have thought those kind of signings can make up for the loss of Elise, but unfortunately they just haven't been able to recapture the magic he has. And I also feel like it's affected Eze not having Elise there. I feel like Eze not having his kind of partner in crime, someone else who like pass play off, and also someone that takes the attention away from Eze as well, it's led to Eze kind of floundering a bit.
Where's Kamada though?
Kamada playing in central midfield at the moment. They've got a front three of Eze, Mateta, and Nketiah, and I feel like they're kind of they're trying to fit and squeeze Nketiah into that Elise role, and he's just not that kind of player. I feel like what he needs to do is, instead of playing a 3-4-3, he needs to change it to a 3-4-1-2. Just play Nketiah next to Mateta, play Eze in behind, and kind of just a few little
just get
tweaks.
them all very close to each other and get Nketiah close to the goal.
And look, that's not his best formation, but I think that might have to be done because at the moment, Nketiah's doing all right, but I think he's not in his best position. Eze as well, I feel like he's not impacting games as much as he should. But talking about Everton, what a season Dwight McNeil is having at the moment. 5
goal contributions, 3 goals, 2 assists.
And what a goal he scored. That's both goals. You see both goals?
He's got a proper strike on him, Dwight McNeil. He really does. And I've rated him. I think he came out clutch a few times for Everton last season. And this time, yes, this is their first win, but he is head and shoulders their most dangerous outlet, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he does have a wonderful left foot, and obviously he's really good at, I think he's top of the league actually for chances created. And it's obviously a lot of it's from set pieces. He's really got great delivery from set pieces. He's such a Dyche kind of player. Obviously, he had him at Burnley, and he's taken him to Everton. I don't think it's kind of taken him a while to really get to his best, but I feel at the moment we're seeing him contribute like really regularly at the moment, and he's been very impressive. And his 2 goals, the first one, beautiful curler into the top corner from 25 yards, and the second one, that touch was like Bergkamp-esque. The way he touched it and volleyed it home. Obviously, a bit of luck, I think, with the deflection, but unbelievable kind of touch from Dwight McNeil, and really, really came up trumps in a crucial time for Everton, because if they didn't win this game, Dyche has the pressure's really, really building, so it just takes the pressure off them a bit. And look, they've got some good fixtures coming up, so if that can kind of give them a building block to go on a run, then they could see this moment as a real turning point. Yeah, look, I was never really worried about Dyche, about him losing his job. I thought he was always going to turn it around, and we've seen Everton go through these kind of patches of form and turn it around last season as well. And if I'm Ollie Glasner, he needs to turn it around soon. He does, because they were pushing top half of the table last season, and if they regress and find themselves in a relegation battle this year, he's going to lose his job, isn't he? Well, next game, Liverpool at home, and then Forest away. 2 teams to have started the season really well. So, and then Spurs at home, and then Villa. I mean, tough games. If he goes on a run of like 4 and then like another 4 losses, I mean, yeah. Well, if that happens, that's 0 wins from his first 10 games. That is a big sample size. That's a quarter of a season. Hodgson still available? Bring back Woy. Yeah, maybe they'll give Patrick Vieira the call back as well. Yeah, maybe. Let's talk about Nottingham Forest now, because they lost their first game of the season, their first loss of the season at home to Fulham. Raul Jimenez carrying on his good start to the season from the penalty spot just after half-time. And I always thought this game was going to be a bit of a stretch too far for Nottingham Forest, because yes, they've got good players, but they've had a very good start to the season, and they were performing maybe above what their level is right now. So, look,
Fulham have started the season well. Marco Silva is a very good manager, in my opinion. And look, I think both these teams, neither of them performed out of their skin. It was just won by a fine margin.
Yeah, won by a penalty, which I thought was a really dodgy decision, to be honest. It was one, I think, given by VAR, and I just thought it was one of those where I just didn't think VAR had to get involved. I just didn't think it was a VAR penalty, but Jimenez sticks it away confidently. Big blow for Forest, obviously losing the unbeaten run, but they could have easily gotten a draw out of this game with some of the chances they did have. I think they probably could have had a penalty in their own right as well, which was waved away from the referee. So, yeah, unfortunately, this was a step too far for them, but I think, look, they're still going a good way. But Fulham, up to 6th, haven't lost since the opening day of the season. 3 wins, 2 draws, and only 1 defeat in their first 6. They got Jimenez now, who looks like he's getting close to his Wolves form at the moment.
Moon is nowhere to be seen after the last season.
I mean, look, we know that Jimenez, when he's at his best, is a really great Premier League striker. Obviously, when he had that big head injury, there was always going to be big question marks, will he ever get back to his best? And that's unfortunate because you never want to see a player as good as him never get back to his best. But from what I'm seeing this season, I'm not saying he's there, but the goal he scored against Newcastle, the way he just volleyed, chested it and turned on the volley and smashed it home, that got me reminiscing of his Wolves days. And maybe they are finally starting to see him get over that injury potentially. And if he does, you got him, you got Smith Rowe, who's a good player, you got Iwobi and Reece Nelson, Adama Traore, and that's all of a sudden you got the makings of quite an exciting front line. And obviously Marco Silva knows how to organise a defence. He's done that many times for Fulham. He can be quite pragmatic when he needs to be, and they're doing well. They're joint second with Spurs and Arsenal for goals conceded. So they've got a really tight defence, and 2 wins in a row now against Forest and against Newcastle. So they're going well.
Tough tests ahead though. The next 2 games are Man City away and Aston Villa at home. So I do envisage them to maybe come unstuck in these games. But credit to Marco Silva and the way he's managed Fulham from the start, to be honest. I think he's done a really good job there.
And Anderson was a great signing as well, Joachim Anderson.
Yeah, absolutely. Wolves against Liverpool at Molineux. Sim went for 1-0 to Liverpool. I went for 3-1. It did finish 1-0. It did finish 2-1 to Liverpool. Not the greatest Liverpool display by any stretch of the imagination. One on a penalty from Mo Salah with about half an hour to go. I think Liverpool did deserve it by the end, but I don't think they were great by any stretch of the imagination.
I mean, people have been Gary Neville's going really hard on that performance.
Was he? I didn't see him.
Yeah, I mean, he was, but I thought they deserved the win. I thought they were pretty well worth the win. They did concede a really sloppy goal between a mix-up between Konate and Alisson, but they got
that
back.
That was awful, by the way.
It was terrible, and Wolves found themselves back in the game, but they got the penalty, I think, within a minute of going down, of conceding. I thought the whole first half, there was only one team looked like they were going to get a goal, and that was Liverpool. Szoboszlai had missed an absolute sitter with an open goal. And I thought Liverpool controlled the game pretty comfortably. I think Wolves had very little. Wolves didn't really hurt Liverpool apart from the goal they scored. So, look, the XG 2.5 to Liverpool or 0.6 to Wolves. So that tells me, I think as much as they had some difficulties and maybe they weren't at their very best, they still more than deserve to win the game.
Yeah, look, they did deserve to win the game, and the stats reflect that. They did deserve to win the game. But I think what it is about this game when people are looking at it, they weren't at their kind of, free-flowing best, were they? You didn't see unbelievable moves that maybe you have seen earlier on in the season from Liverpool.
Wolves are the kind of team they try and stop you, aren't they? They make it difficult.
No, absolutely, it's a good away win. But Wolves, on the other hand, sitting bottom of the league with 1 point, so maybe you did kind of expect a more convincing win.
Look, obviously, when they're on such a bad run, they're going to try and do things to turn it around. So I don't think you can ever, look at their other games when Wolves are a team that on their day, very tight defensive, very aggressive team as well. Always difficult to play against at Molineux. And Liverpool came up against a Wolves team who, tried to stop them. And they couldn't stop them winning, but they did stop them playing good football. I still thought Trent had a massive influence on the game. I thought the front three at times were causing them trouble. They did create enough chances, more than enough chances to win the game. So it was one of those where it was a tough away win, but I think they got the job done and deserved the win. But Wolves, at what point do they start worrying? Because it's now no wins in 6 as well, 16 goals conceded, which is the top in the league. Obviously, they conceded 6 against Chelsea, didn't they? And and now they've conceded the most in the league. For a team like Wolves under Gary Neal, who pride themselves over being a strong unit who are tough to break down, that stat just isn't going to stand them against dead, is it?
No, definitely not. They need to improve dramatically. I know it's early stages, so maybe it's a bit too soon and too quick to start talking about relegation, but when you can't buy a win and you're just leaking goals like that, particularly for a team that prides themselves on solidity, then yeah, you do need to worry. And I'm a big fan of Gary O'Neill. I think he's done really good jobs in the past, did a good job at Bournemouth, did a really good job at Wolves since joining there, but the start of this season has been shocking, absolutely shocking.
I feel like, obviously, last season they were quite relying on obviously that front three of Neto, Hwang and Cunha. I feel like Neto's obviously left. I feel like Hwang isn't the same player as he was last season. I feel like last season he overperformed and now he's not quite. And I feel like they're so heavily reliant on Cunha. Like if Cunha doesn't pull a rabbit out of the hat, they've just got nothing at the moment. And that's got to be a really big concern for Wolves.
If let's say Cunha does decide to leave Wolves, what kind of club do you think can pick him up? Do you reckon he could go to like a top 6 club or like a level below that?
I reckon top 6 club looking at him, because I think he's actually... I think the big question mark when he joined Wolves from Atletico was like, yeah, he's a good player, but is he really effective? He's one of those players who, is he really effective in the final third? Is he going to be one of those players who like dribble past 3 players but then pick the wrong pass or hit it over the bar kind of thing? But he's actually really added those goal contributions. He started to find corners. He's starting to actually be quite a good finisher. So I actually think he's a really good player. I wouldn't be surprised someone like Newcastle picks him up. I think it'd be a perfect sign for Newcastle. Good signing for Villa. I think Tottenham should look at him. I think he'd be a really good signing for Tottenham as well. I think Chelsea just have chock-a-block of talent. I don't think they'll go for him. I don't think Arsenal look at him. I don't know if he's City level, albeit, I mean, if you've got him for depth, he's pretty good. I actually quite fancy him at Liverpool as well. I think he'd do a good job at Liverpool. But I think
he'd be really good in that Villa team.
Yeah, I think maybe like between Newcastle, Spurs, and Villa, one and maybe even Brighton, like one of those teams should be looking at him for sure, because I think he'd fit in really well there.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Let's move on to the Sunday games. Ipswich against Villa, where we saw a shock result in 2 goals apiece. Sim went for 2-1 to Villa. I went for 3-1 to Villa. And it looked like one of us was going to get a 5-pointer at half-time because, they take the lead early, Ipswich, through Liam Delap, who's having a really good start to the season. It seems like a really good signing from Man City for Ipswich. But as all good teams do, they came back straight away and turned it around in the space of half an hour with Morgan Rogers, who's been brilliant and been threatening to score all season, finally got on the score sheet, and Ollie Watkins, who's banging form once again at the moment. But I don't know what happened, because Villa didn't really come out for that second half, did they?
Yeah, I don't know whether it was tired legs or I don't know. I mean, they did play in midweek, but they rested a lot of players. So it's just one of those where they weren't at the race the second half. And Ipswich, I mean, they equalised with a brilliant goal for Liam Delap. Ran from the left-hand side of that space, cut inside, and went on the outside of Diego Carlos and just smashed it into the far corner. Brilliant goal from him, who's, yeah, as you say, he's had a great season. Those players from the City Academy, they all seem to just have brilliant technique and all seem to like go really far. But if anyone was going to,
it's like the English version of La Masia.
Yeah, honestly, City are doing a great job with that academy. But if anyone was going to win it did look like it was going to be Ipswich. Jack Clark was causing the problems as well. I think, was this his first start for Ipswich? But I'm not sure if it was his first game. But he played really well, actually. He's looked like could be a good buy for them. And Villa just seemed out of sorts a bit in this one. They didn't seem to come out in the second half and do well at all. And I have seen this occasionally from Villa last season where Emery is very tactical, but sometimes when they get into the lead and go into the second half, they kind of sit deep and just lose their way and try and see out games rather than going for the throw and going for that third goal and kill the game off. That had happened quite a lot under Unai Emery, and I think yesterday was a similar case. They went to half time in the lead, and they just stopped going forward. They stopped they had the boot on Ipswich neck and they just didn't go for the kill.
I'm sorry, but you can't do that with a 1-goal lead in the Premier League. You just can't do it. We've seen it time and time again. And Villa nearly lost their top 4 spot because of it last season. And now, again, away at Ipswich in a game at half time where they were well on top, turned around a 1-0 deficit. They should be going for the throat in the beginning stage of the second half and trying to seal that game off.
Yeah, but on the flip side, Watkins, after a sloppy start to the season where he was missing a lot of chances, he's really found his goal scoring boots. I think it's 4 goals now in his last 3 games. So looks like he's back on form. And obviously Rodgers, I think, got his first goal of the season, which definitely he deserved because he's been brilliant. So going forward, they got their good players firing, but yeah, I think Emre has to kind of find a way to when he's trying to basically make sure they don't give up a lead. He's got to find a way of making sure his team doesn't come under too much pressure and give the team opposition too much encouragement, because that's happened a bit too often now under his tenure. As much as he's been brilliant.
Yeah, but you look at Ipswich on the other hand, 4 draws now in a row, and these draws are coming up against decent opposition. They a 1-1 draw against Fulham, who we just spoke about. They're performing really well at the moment. Aston Villa, obviously, and Brighton away, going to the Amex and getting a point. Obviously, they probably. If you're drawing against those teams, you've got to be looking to beat Southampton at home, who's just conceding left, right and centre at the moment. But those 3 draws against Villa, Brighton and Fulham are definitely good points for them. And do you look at that as 4 games without a loss or 4 games without a win? Like, is it glass half empty or glass half full?
Depends if their next game's a loss or a win.
Well, West Ham away next.
Like, if it's you can pick either narrative. They lose to West Ham, it's no wins this season. If they beat West Ham, it's 5 games unbeaten. So you can kind of look at either way. I kind of feel like Ipswich, don't get me wrong, it shows that they can compete in this level, and it shows that they're going to be a difficult team to play against. And those 4 draws, as much as they've not got any wins now, they are up to 15th. So they're out of the relegation zone, which is really positive for them. But they do need to start getting wins at some point. And as much as draws are credible, if you don't start getting wins at some point, it's not going to help you at all. So really positive. I'm an Ipswich fan. I'll be really happy and proud of my team, and really think we're going well, because you are 4 unbeaten, and that shows you are definitely
tough nut to crack, and against good sides as well.
And they're against good sides, but they haven't won, and they haven't won all season. And if that continues, these draws are not going to be looked back on, we got those draws. They're going to be like, we didn't win. And that's going to be the reality.
When I'm trying to compare the 3 promoted clubs, I'm definitely looking at Ipswich in the most positive light at the moment, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think Kieran McKenna's doing a really good job there.
He's a very good manager.
He was linked with the big clubs in the summer, wasn't he?
He was on the, wasn't he at the Man U coaching staff at one point, and Man United were even looking at him in the summer, but
Chelsea as well.
They decided against it.
And
Chelsea as well, yeah.
They're both looking at him. But look, he is doing well. It does remind me a bit of like Company last season, who then went on to go to Bayern. Like, can see what Burnley are trying to do, but he just doesn't have the tools to do it. And whether Ipswich, it could be the same thing. We'll have to wait and see.
The difference between that is that Burnley were just conceding just a mad amount of goals last season, particularly at the beginning. That game against Spurs, they conceded 5 goals in the second game of the season, and plenty of other games they just conceded so many games, and they weren't that hard to beat. Ipswich are looking quite hard to beat.
At the moment they are, yeah.
So you've got to give them credit for that. Let's move on to the Old Trafford. It finished 3-0 to Tottenham, and it was an absolute spanking of Manchester United, which has got to be, well, if it wasn't the beginning of end towards the back end of last season, it's definitely the beginning of the end for Erik ten Hag. Now, Manchester United were an absolute shambles. They were an absolute disgrace in this game. And with Man United fans, they were coming into this game quite positive. Oh, we're going to beat you. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. It's only Tottenham, blah, blah, blah. They got absolutely ripped to shreds, particularly in that first half. Spurs were just running rings and running riot at Old Trafford. I've never seen anything like it. We both did predict Spurs win, so we both get a point on the board for here on this one. But Erik ten Hag, he's losing his job by the international break. I'm pretty certain of it.
Yeah, it looks like this is the kind of performance where I think everyone now is, for every Man United fan I can see, is on the same page about Ten Hag. I think last season, obviously, when they finished 8th, that FA Cup kind of just saved him. Even though Man United tried to look at different managers, they decided just to give him another chance. But it was probably on the kind of the reasoning for it was, or the logic was, they give him another chance, but these kind of performances and results hopefully will stop, and they won't be happening anymore. And now you were going to back you with De Ligt and Xerxes, big money, Mazraoui,
250 million they spent this summer.
Big money we're going to back you with, and what we want to see is massive improvement, massive progression, and what we want to see is, what the number one thing they probably want to see is these humiliating defeats and performances stopping, like the ones against Palace last season, like the 7-0 against Liverpool, all these kind of things which happen too regularly. And then to have back-to-back 3-0 home defeats for Man United now. and this one was even worse than the Liverpool one, and just totally outclassed by a manager who's braver, who looked like who coaches his team better, looks like definitely in possession, who presses better, who just throws caution to the wind. And a lot of Man United fans probably looked at both teams and argued, this player's better than that player and this player's better than that player. But the difference is, Ange is just, at the moment, the way he's got us set up and the way he gets us to play is making a lot of these players better and better than the sum of its parts a lot. And I think as well, we got a lot of underrated quality players like Kulusevski, who I think opposition fans don't give enough credit to, people like that, and they don't understand how good people like Van de Ven are, baby, fully. And I thought Man United came out in this game and with fear. They came out unorganised, and Tottenham just tore them to shreds. They taught them a lesson, absolute lesson, how to press, how to be on the ball. Not only that, how to defend, how to make sure that you're restricting the opposition of chances and not giving them spaces and not allowing them control. Man United way too often are just passive out of possession, don't allow control. Allow too much control for the opposition, which Tottenham, whatever you want to say about them being open, well, the one thing they do try to stop is the opposition having control and the opposition having too much of the ball, and they get in your face and they press you. And Man United couldn't live with it. They just couldn't live with it, and I think the result probably flattered Man United in the end. The fact it was only 3-0.
Definitely. Spurs. And you know what? I don't want to take anything away from us and Spurs on the day, because we were brilliant. No matter how poor United were, Spurs were absolutely brilliant on the day, and Timo Werner missed a couple of gilt-edged chances, and if this game finishes 5 or 6-0, you're probably saying that's a deserved victory for Spurs, and that probably wouldn't have flattered them. So brilliant day for Spurs. Spurs are really starting to show a bit of an upward trajectory in the season as well. I think we're consistently playing well. 4 wins in a row in all competitions, 2 clean sheets in a row in all competitions as well. And it just showed how frustrated Man United got throughout the day, because they were just hacking us down. 3 of their back 4 got booked on the day, and Ugarte got booked as well, and then Bruno Fernandes, whether you think it's a sending off or not, that challenge, as much as he slipped, was born out of frustration.
Yeah, definitely. And they were all over the place, Man United, and it really showed the gulf between the two teams. Even though Ten Hag's been in the job longer, he's probably spent more money than Ange Postecoglou. Ange came to Old Trafford and taught him a massive lesson. But so what are we saying for Ten Hag? Well, what's the date? What date are you setting for his departure? Well, the problem Man United have is they backed him so hard in the summer. Can you really afford just to sack him 6 games into a season? I
think by the time we next do this show, he won't be in a job.
By the time we next do the show?
Yeah.
On Thursday?
No, this show, the review show.
The review show. So next week?
Yeah, I think he'll be sacked. I think
before the international break.
Maybe it won't be before the show, but it'll be in that period, in the next week, like in the 7 days after that their Villa game.
So you reckon Ruud will be charged for the game against I don't know
after the international break?
Against so they got Porto tomorrow, I think, or Thursday. And then they've got Villa away on
They'll lose to Porto, they'll lose to Villa, and he'll get sacked.
They beat Villa away last year.
They did beat Villa away last year. But
Villa's the kind of game where even though you don't play well, they could just...
I hope they do beat Villa.
You never know.
I hope they do beat Villa, because it'll keep them in a job for that bit longer. But they're just shocking. They're shocking. And even at home to 20 in the Europa League, they drew. You know what I mean? Like, there's no chance they beating Porto. I can't see them doing that. And to be honest,
Porto have lost a lot of players from last year. Everyone looks back at that team they were last year, but it's quite a different team.
Agreed,
now.
And they lost their first game in the Europa League, I think, Porto. But they're going to look at this Man United team and they're going to fancy their chances, no matter what team Porto have at the moment. Man United they're shocking at the moment. They really are.
Bodo Glimt.
Yeah, they lost to Bodo Glimt 3-2.
They lost to Raimi. They've lost Conceição,
Evan
Nilsson. They've lost a lot of players. Like, I reckon, you know what I'm predicting? I'm predicting like everyone's like thinking this Porto team is like really super tough, and then they're going to like sneak a dodgy win, like because Porto aren't as good at it. Then everyone's going to be like, oh my god, what a win for Ten Hag, and it's going to buy him some time. That's what I'm predicting.
I hope so. I hope you're right, but I think Porto will beat him, and I think Villa will beat him, and I think he's going to get sacked.
I think they beat Porto and then they lose to Villa. That's my prediction.
And will he get sacked?
I don't know. Is he going to get sacked? I just think like you've given him literally all his players, and I know it's been not a good start to the season, but you might as well give it to like Christmas, because you've just given him his team. Unless you believe he's lost the dressing room, that's a different fact. If he's lost the dressing room, you've got to sack him. But if you believe that the dressing room is still with him, and you've given all these players, you might as well just give him a bit longer, I guess, because what you're going to get in a new manager, and you're going to have to rip it all up again and start another rebuild, unless you just think, look, it's already, you've cut your losses.
I think they're just delaying that process.
Then it was stupid to keep him on.
We all knew it was stupid to keep him on at the time, and I think, well, I said it, I don't know if you said it when we were predicting the league table, I said Ten Hag to be gone by Christmas this year. Like, you don't openly look for a new manager if you don't think he's good enough for the job. You know what I mean? And they didn't get Tuchel over the line or whoever. What they're saying is they couldn't find an upgrade on Ten Hag in the current manager market, which I think is absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy what Man U did this summer. No, you cannot openly look for a new manager and not sack him. You can't do that.
It's ridiculous.
And for Ten Hag's own kind of personal pride, like, he shouldn't even have stayed in the job.
He should have resigned. He should have just resigned, I agree. And also, if he would have resigned with a bit of credit.
FA Cup.
He just won the FA Cup. And so I think teams would look at him like, if he would have resigned in the summer, people would have looked at him and say, actually, United's a mess, and he got 2 trophies, he won the FA Cup. But now people are going to be like, actually, he's been backed and he's got all the players he wants, and they're still probably worse than ever. So actually, maybe he was the problem, kind of thing.
They've spent over 600 million since he's come into the job.
Yeah,
600 million in the space of 3 years.
Looked terrible. De Ligt was all at sea. Zirkzee looked like he can't finish. Like
Kobbie Mainoo looks a shadow of his last season himself.
Rashford. I mean,
oh my God, Rashford.
He's just horrific.
Rashford was terrible.
Horrific. But yeah, look, Man United, it's going to be very interesting to see what comes of them in the next month or so. I think Rude's definitely waiting in the wings.
But you look at what's happened since Alex Ferguson has left the club, right? You've seen resurgence in Man City. Obviously, they've done what they've done. Arsenal have gone away and come back. Liverpool have gone from strength to strength. Klopp has left. Arne Slot has come in and made a good start to life. Tottenham have kind of gone away and then starting to come back now. You're looking at all these teams that have started new projects and overlapping Man United again.
Yeah.
It's madness, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But anyway, last game of the weekend was Monday Night Football, Bournemouth against Southampton. It finished 3-1 to Bournemouth, and Sim gets a 5-pointer. He goes for 3-1. I went for 2-1. And Bournemouth just kind of blew away Southampton in like a 20-minute period in the first half, didn't they? Semenyo was running rings around them. Evan Nilsson gets his first goal for the club. And you kind of feel like with Southampton, however good they are sometimes on the ball, they just concede way too many goals. And you were talking about Ipswich looking like, in comparison to Burnley last season, I look at it more like Southampton. Maybe not in the manager perspective, but in terms of the way they're trying to play. They need to shut up shop a little bit. They need to become a bit more harder to beat, where you do see a bit of pretty football sometimes in there from Southampton, but they're conceding way too many goals and they're too easy to score against.
Yeah, way too easy. Although I think what I do see in Southampton, which I don't see in Ipswich, is they've just got this weakness. They're just so easy to play against. Like they don't put in hard challenges. When the opposition have the ball, they don't make tackles and things like that. Even Burnley last season, like I still like. Obviously they were very open, but they still had a bit of grit about them. I feel like Southampton, they just don't have that at the moment. They're really, really weak. And Russell Martin said that after the game. He said, I didn't recognise my team in that first half, and we started well, but once we conceded, we just folded and we played within ourselves. And he said, I didn't recognise my team, and it really hurt him. And he, it sounds like he gave him a bit of a bollocking after the game, and or at half time anyway, after them being 3-0 down. And Bournemouth just found it way too easy to just get in on that Southampton back line and cause them damage. And good for Bournemouth, because Semenyo continuing his brilliant start of the season. Evan Nilsson got his goal as well, which they needed, because he didn't want to carry on that goal drought he's had at the beginning of the season. And then Otara got a bit of a luck, deflected off him, didn't it? But I don't even think Bournemouth were that good. I found it way too easy, just to get those moments against Southampton. And Southampton, who had the possession, just couldn't really do anything with it. And Bournemouth were just direct. They just went for the throat when they got the chance. Look, you can see the XG, 1.37, wasn't particularly high. Only one big chance. Obviously, Semenyo's goal was a real great goal, but I mean, Evan Nilsson's goal was a bit of magic. It wasn't like a big chance. I don't think Bournemouth like carved them open. It was just a case of they were very direct. They had their moments of quality, and Southampton just didn't really have an answer.
They literally just blew them away over a course of a 20-minute period, and Southampton just couldn't get themselves back in the game. But back on what you were saying about Russell Martin, how he was going in on his team and stuff. Like, I think Russell Martin should be taking a closer look at himself, because yes, they had a very good season in the Championship last year, but out of everyone in the top 6 in the Championship, they conceded the most goals. And he's come into the Premier League and thought that he could do the same thing, what he did in the Championship, in the Premier League against, much better opposition. So you cannot do that. You can't do that, especially with the players that they have. So he needs to find different ways and different avenues to try and get over the line in football games.
In three of the last 4 games, they've conceded 3 goals. The only one they didn't was Ipswich. So. Yeah. They are leaking goals left, right and centre. And next up, Arsenal.
Oh, God. That's going to be a 6-0 job or something.
Doesn't get any easier for Russ Martin. But well done for Iraola. Good win for them. I don't think it's been in results-wise or performance-wise like the most incredible start for them.
The next 2 games are Arsenal and Man City.
That's Southampton.
Yeah.
But for Bournemouth, the only 2 wins they've had this season was that one, and then the 3-2 win against Everton where they were 2-0 down. So they had their struggles, really important win, but maybe they are up to 11th, so they're doing all right league-wise. But maybe they can start hitting some form because they got Leicester next, and then they got Arsenal after that. So they needed that win.
Yeah, they needed the win. Sitting in 11th, probably, which is where you expect them to be come the end of the season, around that kind of ballpark figure. Star men, it was a Bournemouth head-to-head. Me and Sim went for Semenyo. I went for Evan Nilsson. Me and Sim were out for dinner last night, and we were out there when Evan Nilsson scored, and I was taking the piss a little bit, and then as soon as we left and got in the car, Sim messaged me, Semenyo has scored.
And then I got a 5-pointer.
And then he got the 5-pointer. So yeah.
Turn the tables on that one.
But yes, I'm still in the lead, just about. 62 points to me, 59 points to Sim. We'll be back on Thursday for another round of Premier League predictions. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.